Good morning, everyone. Show and tell session. Welcome to the Ending Homelessness, the first, I think, series of the session show and tell today. My name is COLINI. I work as a program expert for BUNDGAARD in the area of social inclusion, and I've been working with some of the networks working on homelessness and cities working on homelessness. Today here we have representative of a roof network, lead partner, Patricia VANDERBAUWHEDE, Liat ROGEL from lead expert of roof, Dominique FIEVEZ from the city of Toulouse, Irene, please say your surname that I cannot pronounce, please. Thank you very much, representing the city of Thessaloniki. And then we have the representative of another network called CIPDEV, Social Impact Bonds, Mads. Also your surname, please, that I cannot pronounce. Can you say it? Budko, okay. Okay, from Denmark. This is a special session as we are very fashionable because we are in two festivals at the same time. So Festival of Urban here, and the other festival is the International Social Housing Festival in Helsinki. And it was very important for us to be connected with the Social Housing Festival in Helsinki, also because Finland is one of the countries where homelessness is also reached the level of 0 because you have a state policy in eradicating homelessness and marrying and supporting the housing first model. Housing first model is a policy that started in the 90s and is a very plausible solution to end homelessness because it considers provision of housing as a first important and dignified solution to homelessness with a series of support in terms of social support, mental support, medical support, and so on. Why is it important to support this policy? Because the level of homelessness in Europe today, before COVID, just some data before COVID, Abbé Pierre and FEANZA, the federation at European level working on homelessness, estimated that the amount of people sleeping rough has increased over 70% in 10 years. We don't have precise data at European level. We have many definitions of what does it mean homelessness. There is a fragmentation of data, so the problematic is very complex. And at European level, there are some changes because in the past, when we talked about housing and homelessness in relation to this, the response was always, it is not a mandate of the European Commission to work on housing. But things have changed. We had the European Urban Agenda, inclusion partnerships, but also urban poverty, but also affordable housing. We have the European Parliament supporting the work of Kim van Sparentak on affordable adequate housing report. And last year, under the Portuguese presidency in June 2021, we had the launch of the EPOC platform, this European platform on combating homelessness, where there is the intent, it's a voluntary based, the EPOC platform, also to engage and support policies eradicating homelessness. Now, on the side of URBAT, because we understand this to be a very important core problem if we want to achieve the idea of sustainable and fair cities, we had to engage on homelessness as well. So we started in 2018 when we had no cities working directly on this topic with a policy lab. Some cities came together, the city of Ghent, for instance, the city of Toulouse was interested to say, okay, let's put together, let's create an action planning network. And it came to life, the idea of cooperating with ROOF. ROOF is the IPN network which is celebrated today and is going to show also some of the work, working mostly on housing first and better data. And also we engage on another initiative as URBAT, which is called Right to Housing. You can Google it on right to as a number housing.eu. It is a platform that has been created together with Urban Innovative Action, taking the best of examples that we had from 2 programs on collaborative housing, on ideas on No One Left Behind, on ideas on how to contrast financialization of the housing sector. And so now I give the floor to the practices, because what we want to show is that eradicating homelessness is possible when there is political will, when there is support at city level, at local level, at national level, at European level. And that's what we want to achieve also with URBAT, creating this vertical coordination, interaction, to get better places where we have more equitable quality of life. So now I have the first video of Roof, and then I give the floor to Patricia and to Liat. Thanks.
Roof. 9 cities, 1 objective: ending homelessness. Homelessness is the most extreme form of poverty. In Europe, an estimated 700,000 people and counting don't have a roof, a house, a home. A nightmare for a person to live it, a disgrace for a society to allow it. Yet society can end homelessness, in the next decades even, through long-term thinking and systemic change, through evolving from sheltering towards housing, through offering stability and support, through cities, countries and Europe joining forces to make this happen. For 3 years, in the framework of URBAT, 9 European cities have been putting this into practice. As part of the Roof network, they have been exchanging knowledge, testing and planning new ways of working and changing mindsets. For some cities, it meant starting from zero and understanding how to change their local mindset and put the first milestones to introduce housing first. Some cities needed better data to begin with. Other cities needed to figure out how to scale and consolidate the shift from shelter to housing and housing first without losing quality. More houses, more people. Many cities needed to invent new ways to access affordable housing solutions. Support systems were being questioned and reinvented. A couple of advanced cities took the opportunity to work on prevention or long-term quality guarantee. All cities designed a plan to change mindsets on the local and national policy levels. The cities have made real progress. Each city now has a detailed local action plan for the future and a strong local group to support future activities. But it is not enough. The Roof process made it even more clear that it takes a city, a country, and Europe to finally end homelessness. The Roof network created 4 specific messages outlining what Europe can do to help cities towards functional zero. The Roof network asks Europe 4 specific things. Firstly, to produce an ending homelessness strategy by 2024-25 that includes key actions on improving the affordability and the quality of housing solutions. Secondly, to develop a joint monitoring system together with the EU member states with harmonized indicators and ad hoc service on homelessness to help inform policy decisions in this area. Thirdly, to promote housing-led approaches, particularly housing first, as a key method of tackling homelessness. Finally, to allocate EU structural and investment funds to tackle homelessness by expanding affordable housing stock and providing support to allow people to live and thrive independently. It takes a city, a country, and Europe. It takes a roof, a house, a home. It takes all of us. Together, we can end homelessness. Groove. 9 cities, 1 objective: ending homelessness.
Thank you. My name is Patricia VANDERBAUWHEDE, and I'm project leader of the roof project for the city of Ghent. I work for the housing office there. Maybe just to keep it a bit clear, so we were a network of 9 cities, and we exchanged on planning on ending homelessness through Housing First and data collection. So we chose a very specific topic that we believe could help really end homelessness. And we found those cities that you see on the screen to be interested to work with us. Braga from Portugal, Glasgow from Scotland, Liège from Belgium, Odense from Denmark, Poznan from Poland, Thessaloniki from Greece, Timișoara from Romania, and Toulouse Metropole from France. The video we just saw, so we can skip to the next slide. So how did roof make a difference for the cities? I'm going to briefly explain that to you. So we made a difference on 3 levels, I think. It's not only for roof, but for also urban projects in general, I think. You create more political will. Specifically for roof, we created more political will to make ending homelessness a priority and make a systemic shift from shelter towards housing first, which is a big deal for a politician to want to do a systemic shift and to say, we will end homelessness by 2040. So they agreed to work on starting housing first. In some cities, for instance, in Timișoara, in Braga, they had started a little, but then they expanded it. Also in Thessaloniki. Then some cities developed further, like Ghent, and also Glasgow and Odense and Toulouse worked further on it and consolidated their existing housing first policy. And then other cities also started on collecting data. For instance, the city of Ghent and Liège and Poznan. Like for Ghent, my city, it was the very first time that we did counting of homeless people with the help of a philanthropic organization. And Liège did the same. So this was a really big thing for Ghent, that the politicians finally agreed to know how many homeless people our city has, so that we can develop then the local action plan, that we know what we're talking about to end it. Next thing is that we were able to make closer cooperation. All of our cities were closer local cooperation between homelessness and housing, because we believe that that's the way to solve it. You cannot do it all on your own in homelessness, and you cannot do it all on your own in the Department of Housing. You need to work together. And in many of the cities that we went to, this was not happening yet. But when we came there, they thought, this is right. And then they started cooperating. On the other hand, there was also now a more strong network of local stakeholders, the ULG, the Urban Local Group, from all relevant domains. And they got to work more and more together because they had to form the local action plan, which Liat will talk about in a minute. Another important aspect of the project was to change mindsets. From very early on, all the cities said, yeah, we believe in housing first, and we believe in data collection and using the ethos framework of FIANSA, but our politicians locally don't, or maybe our co-workers don't, or maybe the regional level or the national level don't. And we can't realize ending homelessness without their support. So we have to really, really work on changing mindsets. So we started an advocacy trajectory. Laura already said a bit about it. So we did two things. We had an ad hoc expert, Professor Brown, and he created a tool on local advocacy so people could analyze what their city needed to realize things, who they needed to approach on the different levels. This is also part of the action plan. And then on a European level, we thought we need the help of Europe as cities to end homelessness, and we created key messages. There's a little booklet here in which you will find the key messages that you just saw on the video. First, we presented it to the Epoch when it was launched, but then on the 13th of May of this year, we had a kind of an advocacy conference with the European Commissioner and with other members of Europe and with the cities to try and convince them to do something about our key messages. So we also had this postcard system with messages on them, and people that wanted, they could fill in a message, and then we will send it to Europe and say, this is what we need. So if some of you are interested, we still have some postcards here if you want to see it. So yeah, that's about the main thing of the advocacy trajectory. We also have a little booklet on the roof project itself.
Thank you. Just for everyone, when Patricia is speaking about the Epoch, is the platform I was mentioning before, supported by the Portuguese presidency, and you also said the ethos. It's a system that creates differentiation of the forms of sleeping rough, homelessness, inadequacy on housing that is promoted by the Federation, the European Federation FIANSA, but it is not accepted completely politically or taken on board. So that was one of the scope of the activities of ROOF, also to promote that system for better counting, better collection of data. Liat, please, for the ROOF.
Thank you. So I'm going to speak a little bit of how the collaboration between cities can help ending homelessness. Everyone knows, I think, by now that URBACT is about cities collaborating, and I cannot not tell you this small story in which in phase 1 we went to visit one of the cities and we entered to a huge shelter for homeless people, and they were even renovating it and adding beds to the shelter. And then a person from Glasgow, which is pretty advanced on housing first and ending homelessness, told us that for 20 years they haven't seen a shelter like that in the city. They don't work this way. So sometimes cities are meeting and they have completely different ways of working, and the strength with URBACT is to bring them together, but it is not so easy. So we reflected on how, of course, you cannot just copy and paste solutions. It's not that easy, even when a solution is proved to be right, because Housing First has a lot of studies that already prove that it works. They are scientific studies, but it's not easy to go to a city that just invested in a huge shelter and say you have to change completely the way you work and you have to move to Housing First. So the first thing is really understanding the local context and working with what is called the URBACT local group, so with the local stakeholders, bringing them into this topic and working together so that slowly you begin to have people speaking about that the whole time and managing to adapt it to their context. We need to be a bit careful about this adaptation because it's crucial, because otherwise you don't do that, but you don't want to lose the quality and you don't want to lose the main values of the solutions that you are bringing. So this is something that with Housing First was a little bit tricky, I would say, but it was really interesting to see how the cities developed that. And one way I think that was really useful, and people talked about it also yesterday, were the small-scale actions. So we called it how to act small and think big. What can you do right now, very quickly, on a very small budget, so that it will help you with this vision of changing completely the way you work? All 9 cities of the ROOF network managed to do something, even if they were in the initial phases of Housing First. They managed to do something to test it. For other cities, it was, like Dominique could tell you about Toulouse, it meant focusing on a specific sector. So, for example, how to access the private rental market. So what we've seen in this last year are the cities setting up support systems. How did they do this on a small budget with a small time? Combining existing things and focusing on a small number. Let's make a support group. This happened in Ghent for just a few people that will be followed like that, and then we will evaluate it. It could be campaigns, it could be training and brainstorming with local stakeholders. And we saw that testing was very, very crucial for all cities. They're just illustrations of the small-scale actions. And then going to the future plans. First of all, and most importantly, the work with the local stakeholders don't only mean that the action plans are co-written, but that the local stakeholders have a role now in the future plans. So you're not coming as a municipality, as a city, and saying, yeah, and then let's do that. It's we all together decided that this is a good way, and we divided the responsibilities. I think this is very powerful in all plans. And then the work on national level, on European level, and even the collaboration between cities is still seen in the action plans. The last thing I'm going to say is that looking to the future, it's also very interesting for the cities of Roof to understand what other elements to combine. That could be gender, aging, housing, general equality of housing, to combine with homelessness so that we can create new projects, maybe access new funds. That's it from me.
Thank you very much, Liat, for explaining the process and the work of Roof. I would like to give the floor to Dominique for presenting the case study of Toulouse. It's quite an interesting case because you have a national policy, but also you have, they use Roof also to create and reconnect with other policies at local level, and she's talking about the integrated action plan. So the small-scale action Liat has been talking about have been embedded in a strategic plan, and I think it's very rich, your plan in Toulouse, and I'm very happy to let you speak about it if the PowerPoint is working. Do you see it? Where? Which direction? Yes, there we are.
Well, I'm Dominique FIEVEZ. I'm the local coordinator for Roof for Toulouse Métropole, and I'm head of the housing service, but on the soft side of housing, and we have another department working on the hard part. That was the first slide. No, before. Just first of all, this. And our challenge was really to coordinate the different levels of the national, local, and European levels about homelessness. So I will give you more details about that. So just to set up the place, Toulouse Métropole is 37 different municipalities, 771,000 inhabitants. And it is a very dynamic area with a regular, important demographic growth of 14,000 new people coming to Toulouse Métropole every year, 9,000 of them coming to the city of Toulouse. This dynamism is really boosted by the aeronautics industry and by the universities that we have in Toulouse. A lot of students come and then stay to find jobs in Toulouse. And unfortunately, this attractiveness can also generate homelessness and exclusion. Yet Toulouse can rely really on very helpful national legislation and to achieve that functional zero. Since 2000, there has been 4 different laws in France where we can really have national laws that help us to fight on homelessness. We have the SRU law adopted in 2000, where we need to build 25% of social housing in each city having more than 3,500 inhabitants. And then we have in 2014 and 2018 2 other laws that put forward that we have to give priority to very vulnerable people to access social housing. And at the same time, we have to work and have an equal, we don't put everybody in the same part of the city. we have really a global solidarity between all the cities to host people that are very vulnerable. So, and finally, in 2018, that was a very important date for us. There was the National Housing First, Housing-led accelerated plan launched by the government. And Toulouse, of course, had been working on homeless for long years, so we applied for that call, and we were one of the cities, of the 23 selected cities, to put on that new national plan in Toulouse. So Toulouse has built up, since many years, a really good partnership with all the 13 social housing organizations who build housing on all the 37 cities of Toulouse Métropole. So even if we have 80,925 social housing, that may seem a lot for a lot of cities who don't have any social housing, still it's not enough. We have 39,000 people on a waiting list for social housing. One third of them are already living in social housing, but they need to move because now this home is too small or too expensive because they have lost their job and all that. And 34% of people have declared being homeless or living with family or with friends. So it is this invisible homelessness that we are trying to find a solution. And every year, you have to know that it's only 7,000 social housing allocation done. So when you're on the waiting list, usually it's 3 to 4 years waiting to have a social housing. Next. Well, oops.
I pushed next.
Okay. The national legislation...
Pushed next.
No. Yes, that's good. The national legislation concerning... Oh, that was right.
It comes a bit late. I don't know when I push.
No, it's earlier.
I know, I pushed back. Now it's going back after 2 minutes.
Okay, that's good, that's good.
So, bear with me.
Okay, so our legislation in France, there's funding from the government to have different levels in the social housing, 3 different levels of rent, very low rent, middle rent, and higher rent, but still under the normal private market. For Toulouse Métropole, we have a social housing policy that has been approved. We have to build 2,400 social housing units per year, and minimum 30% of them have to be very low rent, and not maximum 50% for the higher rent, but still which is less than the private market. This is also to have mixity all over the city, that we don't have, I put it in brackets, ghettos where you have very low social housing and then higher social. We want to have a very mixed population integrated in a more private suburbs where you have private. So we do analysis also of the private sector, because sometimes in the private sector you have also very low, bad quality housing. So we need to have a really global mixity. Next one. The key partner for us is what we call the SIAO. It is the Integrated Reception and Orientation Service, which is the key entry for all homeless people. So for us, this team, they have the emergency line for all the homeless that call every day to be allocated either a place in a shelter or a place in a hotel during the winter season. But they also have an outreach team going all over the city every day to see people on the street, sleeping rough, and helping them to apply for social housing. So this is a very important partner for us, and they, of course, were part of our ULG group locally, and up to now, the SIAO had been really working like the previous system, shelter and staircase. even for the SIAO, has been for years thinking shelter, they had to change their mindset and start thinking home, house. And instead, all the people that are documented, instead of offering shelter, they had to change their mind and offer housing instead of shelter. Yes, so I just said that we had that national plan, which is very important to us, and that provided us some funding for having a coordinator and having a budget for coordinating all the present local stakeholders, and to change also as having training, exchange with other cities nationally, but also what we did is that at the same moment, we had the roof project and the national plan. So it was very interesting to have that combined discussions in the two levels, because in our roof project, we had Odense and Glasgow have been putting up Housing First for a long time. So all our local members of the ULG had all been thinking shelter, so they have the real proof that it works, and it was very helpful for us to change that mindset.
I pushed next, I swear. I pushed next.
So really that was, we think, housing. So now what we have been doing, really that changed the roof journey was really, really helpful for us, because most of the partners of the ULG were associations dealing with shelter for years and having state money to do that. So with the Housing First plan, they were all scared of, well, we are going to lose our funds for shelter, and that's not the way, and people need a lot of support, and so and so and so. So there was like a resistance to that big change, but that journey with roof really convinced that it is possible, and this is the right way to go.
Thank you very much.
No,
It's not
not finished.
We have to shrink
Yes,
it a little
shorter.
bit.
Yes, okay.
Sorry.
So in our plan, we have a counting every year. It's been now 4 years that we do the street counting, and it is very important for us. And now it's 4,500 homeless people in the street and in the shelters. And I don't think about all the homeless people. So we have built up a big plan where our SSA was a dedicated video to find social housing, but also to find in the private sector, to have private owners offering housing at a social level with rental intermediation for all. So I'll finish that. Yeah. This is the collaboration of all the tools. Yeah. The counting, I want to go back. I do it every year, and it is very interesting part. And we also, when we work on the waiting list, we did not use the data from the waiting list, people for applying for social housing. And we now have, through the roof journey, compared with the ATO slides. So we are now, with the social housing organization, using that new data to have more detailed knowledge about who are the homeless people, the invisible ones, and we will be able to adapt our solutions in the coming years. So I'm just going to skip this one. And yes, that was about the rental. When we did the video for the rental intermediation, what we do is that we go forward with the video to find new owners providing, but also we have support from 6 different social organizations who offer the support so that they have the guarantee, the owners have the guarantee that the rent is going to be paid, the neighborhood is going to be okay, and that the house is going to be kept in a good condition. And we also used a tool that our service have, is that the Solidarity Housing Fund, who offers financial aid to people who do not pay their rent to prevent eviction, housing eviction, but also we use that budget to offer a regular support for the forthcoming years, because all the associations doing intermediation were very scared of having just a call for 1 year. Now we have a regular support system being organized with new public procurement. So we have, the journey is open to us now. And I will finish with that. So I did, that was the eviction, prevention eviction that we already talked about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know why every time that I push next, it goes to the previous slide. Why so? Maybe you can fix that. It can help me.
I just want to close up. It's the same what we said. We are in a constellation of different stakeholders, but contrarily to the solar system, where each planet stays in the same orbit, the journey for us is that to change that orbit and to move maybe and change a few things in the normal structure to be able to tackle homelessness and achieve the functional zero. So,
thank you very much. Thank you. I think it is a very special case what you're talking about, which is not necessarily comparable to other cases all over Europe. So if we travel from the case of France, where there is a strong decision, political decision, the way you're talking in terms of creation of new laws, and the provision of public social housing, we don't have the same context if we travel to Greece, for instance, where public social housing has not been part of national policies until now. And we have the city of Thessaloniki, who was also active with URBACT and another network on arrival cities, and we're working on inclusions of migrants and refugees, also in relation to accommodation. And they have been piloting a lot of novelties also in the Greek system, especially in the social rental agency. And Irene, please, do you want to use this to move, or do you want me to try to continue? Okay, I'll continue. So Irene is going to talk about the Thessaloniki case. Magic happening. Next slide. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Irene from the Major Development Agency Thessaloniki, MDAT SA. I'm substituting here today Mrs. Merit Sosgounes, the coordinator for all social housing activities at MDAT. And please follow me to this 5-minute journey to Greece to find out how a team managed to create tangible, radical results through the Roof project and sparkle the discussion about social housing in Greece. The team is constituted by the city of Thessaloniki, a project partner of Roof, and MDAT SA, the operational arm of 11 municipalities of the metropolitan area of Thessaloniki. Before understanding how we made this shift towards housing first solution in Greece and generate the nationwide discussion and social housing, let's go and see the status quo of our country and of Thessaloniki. The city of Greece has a high property ownership and increasing number in rents. There is no housing, no social housing stock, nor housing policies. There is no prior experience in working with housing first solutions. The National Homelessness Program relies primarily on providing temporary accommodation for functional homeless. And in each Greek municipality, there is a surplus of vacant properties that, if used properly, we could end homelessness. In the absence of data and knowledge on ground, we conducted a city-based study on housing supplies, demands, and conditions. The main key findings of the study was that the city of Thessaloniki has a surplus of 123K vacant properties out of 507K in the metropolitan area. 90% of the low-income households suffer from housing cost overburden. In the last 10 years, the population of the municipality has shrunk by 23%, and there is an increase of 38% in rental level since 2016. The results of this study, together with peer support from ROOF, pulled the chains and the creation of a small-scale action under which we are developing a housing-first service model and operational framework adapted to the Greek context. Additionally, we will be testing housing-first solutions for the first time in Greece, providing housing and mentoring services for homeless people for 4 years. This small-scale action is being supported by the this pilot initiative is being supported by the small-scale action and by the National Homelessness Program. The case management support is being supported by the SSA, while the National Homelessness Program will provide subsidies, rents, and services such as employability to our first 4 clients. Also, Thessaloniki, in collaboration with the Ministry of Labour, they are going to test and elaborate this pilot, and they will integrate the Housing First initiative in the National Homelessness Program to be included in the upcoming programming period, thus upscaling again the Housing First to the national level. In the context of combating the risk of housing exclusion and homeless, structural changes are necessary in the market. Therefore, our second axis of our plan is focusing on establishing a social rental agency that will generate affordable private housing stock through several interventions, such as improving energy performance of vacant properties and make them available to households and homeless, increase the awareness on tenancy rights and consult tenants against evictions, and consult also on alternative models of housing provision. Currently, the Social Rental Agency is developing a business plan that will secure the sustainability of its operation. In 2023, we are going to run another pilot. This pilot will be funded by the EU Resilience and Recovery Fund, and will provide energy upscaling opportunities to 30 low-income landowners in return of socializing their properties. This photo here shows an award that MDAT received under the innovative policy strand of Habitat International 2021 for achieving valuable results in the social housing field in Greece. So, from all the measures that they were included in our EAP, I presented you the three major interventions that Ruth helped us put into the motion till today. The first one was the development of a housing service model and operational framework to be adapted into the national homeless policy. The second one is the pilot supported by the National Homeless Program, which is housing and mentoring for homeless individuals for 4 years. And the last one is launching a social rental agency, which again will run a pilot of renovating 30 properties and housing 30 households, also funded by the Resilience and Recovery Fund. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. This is a fantastic case, but because where you see that urban methodology really helped to innovate and to test and to try also new models were not existing in this context and really adapting to that context. I can say directly behind the curtains that when Irene, I meet you now here, but I met Meric Özgun, who is also representing Thessaloniki in this partnership. We were talking about this project before it existed, when there was a rival city, and they say, we want to test the social rental agency, we want to make a pilot on homelessness, and now it's real. It took like 4 years, it took another program, and so you really see that a very concrete case where the methodologies really helped very much, so thanks. So if we go again to another completely different context, taking the word of Liat, that you had to really don't do the copy and paste, but really get inspiration from the local context. We go to Denmark, where there is a social, a strong and stable commitment towards housing first, but still, you know, there are different kinds of problems and still space and room for innovation. And so Matt is going to tell us about the case in which you use the model of social impact bonds to help eradication of homelessness. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I'm happy to be here as the guest, the star of this panel, and also provide a little bit of gender balance into it. So yeah, I'm from the city of Aarhus in Denmark, which is the next biggest city in Denmark. As you said, Laura, we have a pretty high level of social security in Denmark, but still we fight, and we continuously fight homelessness. In Aarhus, in the last count, we had 750 homeless people in a city of roughly 350,000 people. We are a very young city, so a large proportion of these 750 people will be young people, and many of them will be battling substance abuse and mental problems. So we have a housing first approach to the homeless area in Aarhus, which builds on the same concepts that we've spoken about here. Person-centered support instead of this staircase system where you have to qualify to the next level of support. Yeah, you can take the next one. So, many of the barriers that I've heard about here are the same thing in Aarhus. We have a lot of political support and a lot of political will to tackle this problem, but we still have some lingering issues. First of all, we may not be so sure what kind of interventions work for different groups of citizens. At some point, we perhaps also need some risk-willing capital to actually make the investment needed in these people. And probably also with some sort of guarantee that this will not cost the taxpayers in the end. We also need some proof of concept of these interventions. We need to know that they're working. And we need to not only know that they're working to provide the social support needed for the citizens, we need to know that they're also working in the sense that they save the public budgets enough money to carry on these interventions. And the last barrier is probably common to a lot of the countries as well, that we have a lot of cross-sector barriers in Aarhus, in Denmark when tackling the homelessness area. Yeah. So, in our network, we work on social impact bonds, which mean I'm not an expert on housing first or homelessness. So this network is about social impact bonds, which is a method or a vehicle of setting up social interventions in a way that could perhaps answer some of these questions and problems I just answered. So this is the very basic structure of a social impact bond. We have an investor providing money, providing capital to a service provider, which could be the municipality. It could also be a private or a volunteering organization. This service provider provides a intervention or a social program that's supposed to create better social outcomes. If and only if this intervention does create the better social outcome, then there will be a repayment from the authority, which is the municipality or the state government, back to the investor. So that's the basic structure of the social impact bond. Yes, you can take the next one. So I will not dwell too much on these two specific projects that we set up. You're free to ask afterwards. I will just briefly mention that they target two different groups of young homeless people. The first one here is what you probably talked about, the ones who are always left behind. So this is the most vulnerable group of young homeless people. They're the one sleeping rough. They probably battle both mental disease and substance abuse, and they're the absolutely most difficult people to get out of the street and to get out of the shelters. So this project targets that group of people, and you can take the next one. So the next project targets a little less severe group of homeless people, but then turns up the ambitions of not only creating housing and the support needed to sustain that house, but also providing them with a job or some sort of attachment to the work, to a company and the workforce, to get them into a network that creates more sustainability in their lives. So just to recap, the intervention logic here is that we have a housing first strategy that provides us with some social inputs. It's supposed to create a social outcome, and if this social outcome shows itself, then there will also be a economic outcome, which in our case will be a reduction in the cost of operating homeless shelters, a reduced unemployment benefits, and also all other sorts of reduced payments to crime or long-term social problems. So this ended up being the organigram of our projects, which was supposed to reflect the simple triangle you saw earlier on. So this is just to say that a social impact bond could easily grow very complex, which is certainly one of the difficulties, perhaps, but also some of the possibilities when working with the social impact bonds. Yeah. Another key feature here of the social impact bond is a rate card, and which probably also what can be seen as sort of provocative in a way. So we actually attempt here to put a price on the social outcome that we work to achieve with these citizens, because we need to have a prior agreement on if the service provider comes up with this social outcome, what amount can we pay back to them? So this is a key feature, and this is what a lot of work will go into in the development phase of these projects. So what's in it for the investors here in these projects? And there's a present answer and a future answer to this question, I believe, because right now the investors in these social impact bonds in Denmark are primarily semi-public social investment funds. They are in it primarily to mature the market of social impact bonds, to prove that it works to the future investors. But they have, as opposed to other public money tanks, they have the possibility of gearing their investments to beyond normal public boundaries. So due to all these factors, they're probably also more risk-willing at this point than the future real investors will be. So in the future, you could see the investors in social services be hardcore pension funds, capital funds, and also companies perhaps with some sort of CSR profile. So the intention here is making these programs into real investments with a real financial payoff for these investors. Probably also mixed with some sort of CSR profiling to it. So right now, these more hardcore investors, they say that they probably need much larger volume, and they also need much more transparency when it comes to the risks in these investments. So a central question here, because this is a bit provocative to put a price on these social outcomes of these people, and the question here could be if we jeopardize progress for these citizens by turning them into some sort of investment project. And there are two answers to this, which might not be sufficient, but you can be the judge of that. But there's no need for the social workers to actually notice that they're part of an investment-based project here. And even if they do, this program should be created in a way that the economic benefit of achieving a success for the municipality here should outweigh the amount we have to repay. So either way, we should have the incentive to do our best effort for these citizens. And for the citizens themselves, they should not notice that this is an investment project either. And there should be no part of this project that is undertaken merely because this is a social impact bond. And we shouldn't bother them with more questionnaires or whatever beyond what's socially needed here. I don't know if we are running out of time, because I can skip the last two here. Perhaps just say a thank you to the CIPDEV network here to provide us with broadened horizons and a lot of expert knowledge on the social impact bond field.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Matt. I would like to thank each of you personally for expressing, for showcasing your work, and each one of you attending the session, which is very rich. There is no space for question and answer, but take the opportunity to talk to our speakers and to know more about the work also online. So look at the Roof Network online, a rooftop event 2022 for the videos, also the CIPDEV online, the righttohousing.eu online, so where you can read and dig out more information of what we have been talking about today. So thank you very much, everyone.